All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and we're going to talk about comics for the next few hours. Welcome to the show. Happy July. Hope you had a safe and happy 4th of July. If you're from here in the States, if you're outside of there, who cares, right? I hope you're having a good summertime. Tell you what, I'm going to throw up a ticker to show what kind of topics we have tonight, because it's going to be a lot of news. Quite a bit of news, exciting, fun news for the most part. And then we're going to review a handful of comics. And then after that, we'll have a cool down period where I'm going to draw and chat about other media that I've been enjoying and take questions from all of you. Thank you for the well wishes on 10th anniversary. Yeah, Comic Tropes been going 10 years somehow. Quite a surprise. Released a new episode over on the main channel, Comic Tropes. Hope you'll consider checking it out. It's all about sharks. It's almost like I've got a theme going, you know? But with all that said, there's so much show today. I don't want to waste much time with preamble. I do want people to have fun filtering in, and I'll say hello to people as often as I can, but I also want to get going. So let's start by talking about the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Okay, there we go. Absolute cinema? No. Absolute comic books. Absolute. Sometimes you just want to do something funny that is a little eye-catching and is mostly very, very silly. But we have some great news tonight. I can't wait to start with this. I considered putting this later in the show when more people have filtered in, but I can't wait. I'm just too excited to talk about it. Look at this. Chain Kata. Not Jim Kata. That sucked. Balls. I don't know. It's terrible. Chain Kata. Let me acknowledge something here real quick. Thank you, Dr. Schubel. I appreciate that very, very much. So, yes, folks, we have an announcement. Daniel Warren Johnson announced earlier today. Chain Kata is his next book. And, you know, here's his description. It's very simple. Chicks with chainsaws in space. But if you look at the Image Comics post on Instagram, there's a little bit more detail. It says that it will follow Luma, a chainsaw-wielding warrior queen seeking an unnamed power in the vast universe. So this is definitely a big sci-fi kind of book. On Instagram, Dan added that this is 9 years in the making. So he's been noodling around this idea for quite a while. If you watch any of his live streams, he often does live streams, almost always does live streams every Friday. He's been drawing this and painting, and we just are only seeing, like, he's only given us snippets. So it's been hard to piece together exactly what this could be, but it's starting to gel. It's starting to form. I think it looks like fun. Daniel Warren Johnson has never disappointed me. Some things I love way more than others, but one of my favorite creators today, both as a writer and an artist. And a cool element is, if it is, to be clear, with his regular colorist Mike Spicer, and it's going to come out through Image starting in November. But I wanted to point out these backgrounds that you see here, and I'll play that trailer again that I think Dan himself made. Look at the backgrounds. And Dan has been doing that himself with various mixed media paints. It's been interesting watching him do that. So that piece of the coloring is Dan experimenting with stuff. If you've ever seen him draw in person, he uses a lot of different mixed media. You know, he's not as simple as like a guy like me that's like, I've got a pencil, I've got a kneaded eraser, I've got a mechanical pen or a brush pen and maybe a brush. You know, he's got a lot more. I think it looks like a lot of fun. I'm excited to get there. November's kind of far away still, but he's been working on this for a while, and so I think that's pretty cool to think that he's gotten, far ahead on this, because we've seen hints of him drawing this for quite a while. Chain Kata looks fun. I mean, his first book ever, of course, was a spacefaring book, Space Mullet. He was putting that out for free online as a webcomic. And so, in a way, doing a full circle. But he's learned a lot since then. So I'm excited to see what kind of storytelling techniques he's picked up over the years. Yeah, I think that this Jaws shirt that I'm wearing, I might have picked it up at like Target. I don't have a current plan to interview anyone. I've been thinking about doing it a little bit more. I will say that my friend Dave from West Coast Avengers is not going to be here live because I know he's interviewing Daniel Warren Johnson tonight. So, maybe in a week or something like that, he'll have that on the Direct Edition podcast. Yeah, it's a strong layout, isn't it? There's that triangle that you get here with the massive bodies all pointing up at the central figure. It's a strong set of shapes. Gymkata has many fun parts to it, but also many boring parts to it. But it is pretty funny. Like, for instance, the fact that this guy who has all these gymnastic abilities just happens to find a stone structure in the middle of the town of crazies, whatever they call it. It's called something like that. And it's basically a pommel horse. And he just spends 15 minutes spinning on it, kicking people. The Frazetta Triangle, exactly what I was thinking. Frazetta was definitely the artist that clued me into looking for the shapes, the circles and the triangles, and guiding the eye and bisecting, an idea or pushing the eyeball towards a central figure. So Frazetta taught me a lot of that. All right, what else we got? San Diego Comic-Con right around the corner, obviously. So Todd McFarlane announced he's going to be selling some of his San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. That's what he's calling it, on Whatnot this week, ahead of the convention. So I don't quite know what makes that a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Like I say, it's going to be available to everyone on Whatnot this week. Comic-Con is still like 2 weeks away. Here's what he wrote. Join me live on Thursday, July 9th from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific for your only chance to get this year's San Diego Con exclusive comics. The 2-book set will be signed by me and will be available exclusively through my Whatnot live show. Okay, I'm with you so far, Todd. The 2 books are $200 for the set. Limited to 750 sets. He's going to blast through them. $200, but it'll sell. It will. McFarlane said the goal is to sell them early enough that fans could bring them to the convention. That's what makes them a convention exclusive, so that they could get them signed. But it already says that they come signed, so I don't really know how that works. Like, could you sign over your signature? Clean that signature up. I want to get it double signed, double authenticated. I would love to do another of those epic live streams allowing people to plug their indie stuff, but I also don't know when I'm going to have any free time for that. I feel like I'm behind on so many things. But whenever I can find a little kernel of time, I will try to announce it. I guess that's everything I had for this one. But I've got more Comic-Con news. This is interesting. This page may look familiar at first. It may look like Dark Knight Returns. But if you look closer, this page is by Ryan Ottley, not by Frank Miller. Let me talk about why. Felix Comic Art has shared a comic that he, well, as the art representative organization, will have for sale at San Diego Comic-Con. It's known as Batman the Dark Knight Recreated. For the 40th anniversary of that classic comic, Felix has announced a recreation of issue 1 with 50 different artists. 50 is too many, but I'm going to name some of them for you folks. That there is James Herron, first of all. We've got Daniel Warren Johnson, Nick Klein, Ryan Otley, Jim Mahfood, Mike Allred, Danny Earls, Fabio Moon, Joel Jones, Riley Rossmo, Jock, Wes Craig, James Herron, Nick Dragata, many more. Those are some big names, right? So how'd this all come together? This DC isn't doing this like an art rep is doing this. I'll explain. There's another page. This one, who did this one? Hold on. This might be Riley Rossmo. I'm pretty sure that's Riley Rossmo. So Felix Comic Art is going to be at booth 4612 at San Diego Comic-Con. And I point that out because there's a very limited number of these books. And if you're going, I'd recommend rushing to this. Well, that's the thing. I'll explain why you didn't just get a comp, Jim. There's actually a reason for that. None of the artists did, just to be clear, because this isn't from DC. Hi, thank you for the super chat and the kind words. I appreciate that. So the book is comprised of commissions, and then fans gathered the screenshots of, not just screenshots, excuse me, like the high res scans. Like this has been a fan organized thing, and they made it into a hardcover and donated some of those hardcover fan creations to Felix, which he can either sell or auction off at the convention. He says that it's going to his charity, the LouFamilyFund.org. So that's how they're getting past, the fact that you can't just make a DC fan comic like this. It's just too big. But they've been commissions, and even then, I don't know if they really have the rights to put them all together like this, but it was done as a fan project, and they're being donated and then auctioned off for charity. So theoretically, no one's making money on this other than the artists that got commissioned. At the same time, how cool would it be to have a complete recreation done by all these top tier artists? Like, this just sounds amazing. Was there one more piece to that? Yeah. The book has been in the works, like getting these commissions since 2020. So it even includes a page by the late, great John Paul Leon. John Paul Leon. Great artist. The Wintermen, Static. Great artist. Passed away around 2021, I think. But he did his page back in like 2019 or 2020, something like that. So anyway, a lot of great artists there. Sounds cool. I have no idea how many copies. I imagine it's insanely limited. That would be my guess. Savage Street Vigilante will muscle a comp out of these guys. By the way, hopefully you got a chance to support Jim's last crowdfunded book, Savage Street Vigilante. Savage Street Vigilante was your first one. Now you've got Arachnid Enforcer. That's what I was thinking of in my mind, but Jim's been posting to social media. He got copies from the printer. So Arachnid Enforcer should be going out real soon. A group of indie comics artists already did this 10-ish years ago. It was called, Shitty Dark Knight Returns. I have a copy of. It's a lot of text in there too. Do I have it here? I guess I don't know where it is. I thought there was a chance that I had it in here. Yes, Shitty Dark Knight Returns. I do have a copy of that. It's quite amusing. I think it's a cool idea to do as a fan project, as long as you're not, infringing and trying to profit off of like the artists. I don't really care as much about what you're doing against DC. You could get yourself in trouble. But hiring somebody to do a commission doesn't mean that you have the rights to also print that artwork. But if you're doing it as like a free project for charity, I think most people would be okay with that. I think. One other thing about San Diego Comic-Con, The Wrap reported that Entertainment Weekly's annual Saturday night Comic-Con party not going to take place this year. They're not doing it. They did 17 in a row the last 17 years, but not this year, apparently. An EW spokesperson told The Wrap, EW is focusing its Comic-Con presence on its usual photo, video, and hospitality suite, as well as high-profile panels throughout the weekend at EW headquarters at the Hard Rock Hotel. Instead, Fandom is going to host a party with the band The Cover-Ups. That's Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. That's his band right now at Float at the Hard Rock Hotel on Thursday. But there's one other party there that actually sounds really cool to me. For the 40th anniversary of Transformers, the movie, they've put together something called the Apology Tour, because they killed off Prime and people were upset. And they're going to have some live bands on Thursday night at the House of Blues. They've got Knights of Unicron, which has remade a bunch of the songs for a new version of the soundtrack, the original soundtrack from '86. They've got Cold Slither. That's the band that dresses up like the Dreadnoks from G.I. Joe. And Gem. Somebody's going to be performing as Gem. So anyway, yeah, Knights of Unicron, Cold Slither, and Gem, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gem, live music, costumes. I think that's pretty fun and pretty funny. There's a bunch of new music videos, if you don't know, by all of these on YouTube. The only person who needs an apology is Hot Rod Rodimus Prime for 40 years of slander. I don't know. He screwed up pretty bad. I would say that, no, I would say they're more for comic book pros, but you do get a lot of celebs there. And a lot of fans are able to get, an invitation. So it's a big deal if you can get there, meet some cool people. But that's not taking place. But I do think that this thing sounds fun. If I was going to San Diego, if I could afford that, I would try to go to this. This was a nice little surprise to find. On one level, it's just an exclusive cover, but there's some news behind it. Let me share. Ink Alliance is a new collective of Black-owned comic book stores. And they've allied together with shared goal of, they're going to share their resources, make, for instance, covers, do community programming. Their mission is to expand ownership and representation across the comics industry. Well, that's a net positive, I would say. They're debuting this announcement that, this is a thing, Ink Alliance is a thing, with this exclusive cover drawn by Sanford Green that will be for issue 38 of New Titans, where Static is joining the team. They're only making 1,000 of these covers, 1,000 total. And this variant will be available only at these Black-owned comic book stores that are part of Ink Alliance. They're the ones that are paying for it and making it. But after they sell them all on August 19th, the Wednesday, if there's any left at any of these stores, those stores will begin selling them through whatever their site is that following Sunday at 12:01. So Saturday night for Sunday morning, if you wanted to try to get this really cool cover. So who are the stores? Let me show you. Like I say, there's not too many, but maybe one of these is in your neighborhood. None of these are anywhere close to me, but we've got, Blurred's Underground Comics and Collectibles in Illinois, Offbeat in Jackson, Mississippi, Challenges Games and Comics in Atlanta, The Comic Den in LA, Third Coast Comics in Chi-Town, Gulf Coast Cosmos Comics in Houston, Acme Comics in Greensboro, Cuts and Comics in Noonan, Georgia, Windows Comics and Collectibles down in Florida, and Eastgate Comics in North Carolina. So, a few big cities and stuff. I don't happen to have one near me, but I think that's an awesome cover. I hope a lot of people get it. I'm sure that they'll blow through them really, really fast. Yeah, it's really fun and energetic and cool. That catches my eye and would make me think about buying a comic. I will say that's part of what we do in comics right now is we get variant covers that look cool. I do miss covers that represent a key moment of what happens in the story. I feel like we don't get that very much anymore. That we're getting a lot of, hero poses, good compositions, great artwork, but not too many things that tell you what happens in that story. I would love to see some more of that personally. Yeah, I would love it if you hit like for this. That would be really, really nice. Well, up to you. They'll probably go fast. So if you do want to go, I'd recommend being there before they open on Wednesday. I guess you could say that, but I'm also okay with it like hinting at and not being a literal representation. I don't know. I'd like covers that were a little more honest about what the story's about. That's something I would appreciate. It's a set of skills for sure to find a way to interpret that. Yeah, I would agree with you. Battle Beast is an example where it isn't just cool, at least the main Ryan Ottley ones. It's literally showing you something that will happen in that issue. I'm going to do another thing about variant covers that was getting a lot of discussion in the social media spheres that I was looking at, but I will also admit that I don't 100% understand it. So somebody may have more information as I go through the details here. But this week, artist Mark Brooks announced that the exclusive Absolute Batman 22 cover by Jock, which was previously going to come out through Comic Sketch Art, was now going to come out through his web store, Mark Brooks Art. Don't know what happened there, but that's fine. That's where it's going to be sold. The comic itself is $50 for sort of the regular cardstock variant cover covering the rest of the normal comic. 750 copies, $65 for a virgin foil cover, limited to 650. Pretty expensive. Probably these things retail for $6, $7, $8. So that's quite a markup. But, I do understand when you limit the quantities, it's fair to charge more. There's a piece of that I do get. But retailers and a bunch of fans were pushing back at the amount that Brooks would be making on this project. And it seems to be that's what prompted him to reply on social media with this in part. I'm finding out more and more of these retailers and their exclusive Absolute Batman variants, more about them. In many cases, the retailer is making mid to high 5 figures, sometimes even 6 figures, while only giving the artist 100 issues or so for them to sell themselves, plus a little money, often around $1,000. The more I hear about this, the angrier I'm getting. If you're a retailer making mid to high 5 figures and not cutting the artist in, I hope that artist figures it out and stops doing variants for you. I do get a big part of his argument there, but I also will push back and say, as popular as variant covers is, we notice the ones that are popular. There's a lot of variant covers that don't really sell. and the retailer is stuck with those. They've put up all the money up front. At least the artists got paid whatever they felt was a fair wage for making that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I do. I like the idea of them getting a percentage, but I also feel like there's probably more cases where they don't sell than when they do. But the ones that do sell probably sell so well, it more than makes up for that. So it is a gamble, but I think that the gamble overall like sort of makes out, but it also, it balances out a little. The arguments began filtering in from stores. I saw one from a former DC executive, and they were stating what I was just sort of explaining, that stores have to put up a lot of cash up front to print these variants. They're taking the risk, and they're risking a flop. Brooks argued they should do an earnings split after the store gets back their cost. The counter argument is basically just that most variants do not sell out, and it eats into the store's exclusive cover profits. Meanwhile, just while all of this was being discussed, Brooks did announce that they're doing another variant cover for this issue. This one by, I believe it's Adam Kubert. I guess I just wrote Kubert. Darn. I believe it's Adam Kubert. Same prices. It's very confusing to me, though. I don't know if there is even such a thing as a standard deal for a variant cover. I think it's like such a case-by-case basis. Well, it's when it's like there are, of course, variants done by the publisher, but that's separate, right? That's separate. People get paid. People potentially get royalties. That's that. But something like this that I was just talking about, that's where the stores, are coordinating with DC to get approval, but they're the ones paying for it and taking the risk. So there's a couple different kinds of variant covers. And I think that people were just sort of like pushing back at what he was charging and then saying that retailers are making too much off of this. It's like, yeah, there probably are a couple cases where if they can get one of these huge names, they're probably having a huge hit on their hands. But there's a bunch where, they might more like break even, make a small profit, potentially lose some money. So it's an interesting argument going on, but I guess I wanted to talk about it because it's being discussed. At the same time, I can't speak with full authority on any actual profit margins or if there's anything standard. It's just interesting because it's definitely become a very common part of the comics business model these days. Like I don't think Dynamite or Skybound even publish a book with just one cover anymore, let alone getting up to Marvel and DC. But there's some publishers that like every book has several variants. What else we got? We'll talk a little bit about Supergirl again, the movie. So, look, it's definitely a fact that the movie is underperforming. I think that's a nice way of saying it. I like the movie. I said it. I don't think it's perfect at all, but I think it's an enjoyable movie. It's something like a 3 out of 5 or, maybe like 1.5 thumbs out of 3 thumbs. But because it's not doing well, there were a bunch of articles this week, including, reputable sites like The Hollywood Reporter that got behind the scenes discussions about the turmoil that was going on. Some of that was interesting. Apparently the movie was not testing all that well as it was getting made. So James Gunn, the guy in charge of DC Studios, or co-in charge, he stepped in and he had a studio cut made. And then they tested both the studio cut and the 11-minute longer Craig Gillespie version. And the studio cut, just barely did better in those tests. So that's what got released to all of us that went to the theaters. Matt Draper, some of you may know Matt Draper. He used to do a lot of comic reviews. Now he mostly does movie analysis. I think he's brilliant. I'm a supporter of his. Matt actually wasn't able to talk then, but he went to a late test screening around like March and must have seen closer to the Craig Gillespie version. And he talks about that being a pretty strong movie. But I guess there were some changes for sure. And it's just a little weird because, James Gunn did say, like, once we approve it, we're going to be very hands off. But it sounds like that's not the case, at least this instance. Insiders reported that Gunn and Gillespie were not creatively aligned. I think that's a pretty nice political way of saying something regarding the film's tone and script. So Gunn eventually took an active hand in post-production, bringing in writer Jeremy Slater for emergency rewrites and reshoots. They had such a good comic to base this all on. I think that, I was just going to say, like, sort of what Mike Manhattan did is, I think studios sometimes put too much trust in test audiences. I think when if there's somebody in charge that doesn't quite get it, they use that as an excuse to make some changes. I feel like there's never going to be a way to know if the original version would have played just fine or not. I agree. I mean, it moves at a good pace, which is in some ways fun, but in other ways it feels a little slight. Like the characters are sometimes lacking motivation or do things that don't 100% make sense. I think that there's several instances, if I were to do a long Supergirl review, where I go, I'll be honest, like, even though I enjoyed the movie, that's some pretty wonky character decision making. Anyway, allegedly, one of the arguments was that Gillespie wanted the final action scene for a needle drop to use the Cyndi Lauper song "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." Even if you haven't seen it, I don't think that would be a spoiler. There's an action scene at the end, and I'm like, I can kind of imagine it. I think I can kind of imagine that, and I don't mind it at all. Actually, I think it's kind of fun. But James Gunn insisted on this cover of Jimmy Eat World's "The Middle." I don't mind some interesting needle drops. I do think that a lot of the ones that James Gunn has come up with for his own projects, Peacemaker, Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy, there have been some amazing songs that he's selected. But I don't think that was one of the best. I will say that. I like the movie still. It didn't like ruin it for me at all. But it felt artificial. It didn't feel like that natural. I don't know. It was a weird choice. we need more 80s music. Well, I think that I honestly, like, as somebody that grew up in the 80s, I feel like I went through a very long era now of a lot of movies using 80s music, and I do get it. Like, my time is passing. It is definitely time for millennials to get their, 90s and 2000s music. I had a good time at it. I would basically recommend it to people. I'd also say that it isn't incredible. The comic is better. The comic is better. And if you're going to adapt it into one movie, totally understand that there would need to be some cuts because the comic is very episodic. But then you just sort of go, well, what inspired the comic? A movie like True Grit. Let's look at that structure. It's not like steal the characters and stuff, but let's look at that structure. Obviously, that works for movies. Let's follow that a little more closely. And then hang on whatever scenes you can just take from the comic. Exactly. Supergirl should have been blasting Linkin Park and Papa Roach. Transformers knew about it like 15 years ago, right? All right. What else? As long as we're talking about movie stuff. Mattson Tomlin. He's the co-writer of the upcoming The Batman 2. As well as I believe he was the writer on the first one. He's written some other stuff too. He posted to Twitter something interesting this week. I thought it was worth discussion here for us. He said that Hollywood is losing interest in comic book movies, in his opinion. And I would say I definitely agree. I think it's as simple as this. They're spending too much money versus how many people go to the movies right now. I expect Spider-Man this month to do very well. I expect The Odyssey to do very well. But if you make a movie about, I don't know, who's a B-tier character that people still like? Blue Beetle. Well, I guess they did that already. I wasn't thinking of that. But, we'll just take pretend they made Daredevil into a movie. I don't know that you can count on that making a certain amount of money. Certainly not $1 billion. The first Captain Marvel movie, the second Doctor Strange movie, those made $1 billion. If those same movies were released right now, they wouldn't make $1 billion. They'd be lucky to make half of that. So I think that the budgets got way too big on these superhero movies. And I do get it. To do it in live action, it costs a certain amount of money to make that spectacle feel at least somewhat tangible or believable. But I think what we need to do, I have nothing to do with Hollywood. I think what I'd recommend to Hollywood is don't give up on the superhero movie, but work harder on the script to find that emotional core and focus some more scenes on that. Take a little of the spectacle out, but keep people invested with good character work. That's what you have to do, because they got to bring these budgets down. The budgets are just way too high, and it's unrealistic these days to expect some of these projects to make their money back. Yeah, if you do like a Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, I get it. Yes. Avengers, I get it. But if you did an Aquaman movie today and you spent like $250 million on it, I think that that's foolish. I really do. Anyway, he posted, Tomlin did, that he was no longer working on the Mega Man movie. He had announced previously that he was. But he said Hollywood is sort of making a shift from being comic book obsessed to video game obsessed. I think that there's several reasons for that. One of them is that the people that started making the decision to go ahead and make big budget superhero movies and were working on them, they were people that kind of grew up with it anywhere from the Bronze Age through the 90s for the most part. They grew up in this good era of comics. But now we're about a generation past that, if we're being honest, from when the Marvel Cinematic Universe started. We're a generation past that now, just about. And that's when video games started getting really, really good, story-wise. The Last of Us has a fantastic story, for instance. Here's another quote by him. My point of view is also born out of the fact that I am getting at least 5 times more offers for video game adaptations than comic book adaptations this year. This is just me saying it's clear that superhero movies are no longer a guaranteed hit. For a little while there, they were guaranteed, but after the pandemic, not guaranteed. And many of the biggest movies of the last 3 years, they were comic book movies. Each of the Super Mario Brothers movies made over $1 billion. Minecraft, just a notch under $1 billion. So you take that, several shows, there's so many comic book shows now, video game shows now. Obviously, Last of Us, especially first season, pretty incredible. Fallout, I would argue, very, very good show. We're getting a Resident Evil by Zach Krieger of Weapons. Mortal Kombat 2 probably will only do okay. So let's see how the somewhat goofier Street Fighter game does. But the Sonic movies are hits. The Sonic movies are hits. Yeah, Sonic and Mario, when you add it all up, it's so much money. And of course, Super Mario shows that you can do it animated, and movies like Spider-Verse and Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem show that quite a big audience is willing to go to a good animated comic book movie that costs significantly less than these big budget live action ones. Not that they're cheap, but they're cheaper. I think that if I was a Hollywood studio, I'd definitely be looking to do animated. Even, I'd even consider making an animated Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, like set in the same continuity, use the same actors and stuff like that. All of a sudden boom, you can get like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, because he's probably going to take like a much bigger pay cut, but let you do it. Yeah, I didn't see that, but one of my friends watched the Twisted Metal show and told me that they thought it was quite good. Yeah, that's a good point. Look, not every video game movie is good. And some of them are like right in the middle. What was that one? Something like Near Dawn or After Dawn. It was like an interesting horror movie one where like every night or every time that the characters in the movie got killed, their day reset and they faced a new horror monster. I liked that one quite a bit. It only did okay, but still, if you keep the budget at a reasonable level, Until Dawn. Thank you both. And it's funny. Doesn't quite follow the video game exactly. It just sort of uses the premise. But my friend Chuck, who I think is still in the live chat, he actually gifted me that game. And I'd never heard of it, but I had a blast playing that game, Until Dawn. That was a really fun one. Game was way different, but I'm okay with that. They set it up such that you could do the game like next or the third movie or something. But I think... oh yeah, exactly. It's too bad that something like what do you call it? Rick Remender and Wes Craig's book Deadly Class that didn't get renewed, because that was a quality adaptation. That was a real quality adaptation. Exactly, and some of them do quite well, and it's like we never quite learn that lesson, right? You get your Road to Perditions, your History of Violence, your Snowpiercers that are based on comics do quite well for what they are. And then they don't realize that they need to look deeper into comics like that because they don't know that they're based on comics. You definitely did, Chuck. You definitely did. You got me... I think, you know what? I think it was when you were still working in the video game industry. I'm pretty sure that they gave you a physical copy or something like that. And you sort of passed that on to me. I'm pretty sure, thinking about the timing. But I still appreciated it and had a great time with that game. Ghost World is a really good movie. Oh, American Splendor. Forget about it. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to Scalped. That's what it was. Because I knew that it had something to do with your job. And you know what? Maybe TV makes more sense for some of these projects, because especially in this era where that gets you subscribers and there's a real value to that. Well, I think we can be honest that Marvel overextended themselves. I don't think that they made outright bad movies, but they definitely overextended themselves right when Avengers Endgame ended. They were doing too many shows and too many movies because, again, no matter what you think of it review-wise, I liked it, but Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that movie made tons of money. And that was a long time ago. They haven't announced a third movie yet. That's crazy. That's what I mean by overextended. They felt like, how do we not have a Shang-Chi 2 yet? People liked Shang-Chi. That was probably the strongest movie that was new in that, whatever that phase was. But I think that you look at it and with the gift of hindsight, I go, movie franchises generally have about a 10-year window, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but about 10 years. And the ones that last longer than 10 years are rare examples where they'll do light reboots. For instance, James Bond. James Bond was like, from Connery all the way through Brosnan was one continuity before they did a reboot. But they also recast the actor and kind of just treated it like it had happened in a condensed time frame, but that was still a bit of a reboot. You know what I mean? Most movie franchises are trilogies, and they'll come out like once every 3 years or so. So you've got like a 10-year window, and then people age out of it or lose interest. You've got about a 10-year window, in my opinion. And maybe it's not worth just hanging on for dear life. Like the MCU was really, really impressive. I still have a lot of interest in it personally, but I get why other people wouldn't. People like age out of it. I love superhero movies as much as the next person, honestly. And I hope that they continue. I would say that they need to lower the budgets and focus on stronger character work. All right. Oh, again, even though I said all this, remember, this is just one an informed person, but just one person's opinion. So this could be all nothing. Who knows? Maybe superhero movies are here for another 20 years. This was a fun surprise for me this week. So Hasbro last month was announcing a bunch of upcoming G.I. Joes, okay? They do that every June. And one thing that they surprised people with was that they were going to do a Lara Croft Tomb Raider figure for the G.I. Joe classified line. Oh, okay. Kind of weird, but okay. But then this week, G.I. Joe fan groups caught the end of issue 330, which comes out this week, I believe. And it ends with a cameo by Lara and this ad. So the back page indicates that they're going to spin a series out of this, G.I. Joe Tomb Raider. And again, this is in the original comic continuity, the one that began in 82 that's always been written by Larry Hama. We're not talking Energon universe, just to be clear. But yeah, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Elena Casagrande. Could be a lot of fun. Could be a lot of fun. And as long as I'm talking about this, I will mention that Danny McBride, who's written a lot of great stuff over the years. Not always perfect. I didn't love all of what he did with Halloween, but I do love a lot of his shows. You know, Kenny Powers, or Eastbound and Down, I should say, Righteous Gemstones, Vice Principals. I like a lot of his stuff. He was on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast this week, and he announced that he has written a G.I. Joe movie for Paramount. They're rebooting it again. And the reason it's related to comics is he said that his story like kind of narrows the scope, again, keeping a budget reasonable. It's going to just focus on Duke and a small team of Joes trying to infiltrate Springfield. And that is a specific idea from the comic book where Cobra takes over American towns, and everyone that lives in that whole town is a Cobra agent. It's insidious, but really cool. And so, yeah, on top of that, it was about a week ago, Danny McBride was interviewed by GQ and asked what his 7 favorite books were. He had some great choices like Cormac McCarthy, Stephen King's Dark Tower series. He also included the G.I. Joe comic book specifically by Larry Hama. He said that was one of the 7 best books that he's ever read and has influenced his writing. It's very much a Hama idea, but I thought it was cool. Yeah, Stalker is absolutely one of the best Joes, based on somebody that Larry knew. And yeah, I saw your artwork this week, Brunson, of Stalker. You know, rappelling down from a helicopter. Looks great. Really, really good. I love G.I. Joe, especially the Larry Hama version, so that's really cool. What else? Oh, I was just talking about Kyle Higgins was going to write that Lara Croft book. Well, his other book, Radiant Black, got some news. This week, Image's first ever audiobook was released, and it's based on Radiant Black. It features a full voice cast headlined by Ryder Strong and Will Friedle, playing the leads of the story, Nathan Burnett and Marshall Ward, respectively. They've voiced those characters before for ads and a short animation that Kyle once did. So he got them to do the voices for the audiobook. It's produced by Kyle's company, Black Market Narrative, written, directed, and narrated, I will note, by Kyle Higgins. It features cinematic sound design, again, by Higgins. If that sounds odd, I'll just let you know that Kyle actually went to college and studied jazz. So he definitely has a musical background. And an original score from The Walking Dead co-composer, Sam Ewing. You can find it now on Spotify, Libro FM, Everend, and pretty soon it'll come to Audible, Overdrive, whatever places sell audiobooks. It's it varies on the cost. Spotify was selling it like at a discount for $13.49. Libro FM had it for $19.99. You can also get a deluxe version that's $35, and it just comes with tons and tons of extras, behind the scenes, commentary tracks, all sorts of extras. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. I hope it does well for them. Loved deep cuts. Wouldn't have thought that it would be my thing. Super interesting look at the history of jazz. Super interesting. Yeah, Radiant Black has a lot of potential. A lot of potential. The cool thing about G.I. Joe is it isn't like weird jingoism like rah rah America. Instead of like superheroes, it's just a team of specialists. Everybody has something that they're really good at, and the sort of magical element is they just work well together. That's the gimme, the premise. You know, it's not like a radioactive comet or something. The gimme is just that these people work well together, and they just go on all sorts of missions to protect the world from, you know, terrorism and stuff. But in some ways it's military, in some ways it's like spies. Every once in a while you get an idea that's a little bit sci-fi. There's ninja stuff, but the action for like the main G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero book, pretty grounded because Larry Hama was an army soldier. He served in country in Vietnam as an ordnance expert. And I think he brings a lot of that verisimilitude to the book. So, you know, I only played the very first one, and it was a little janky for moving Lara around and like having to jump. I didn't love it. I heard that some of the more recent Tomb Raider games were way, way better, but I haven't played them. I saw the movie with Alicia Vikander, and it was pretty good, but it didn't make much of an impact. Yeah, a lot of the characters, even though there's like tons and tons of characters, it does tend to focus on a smaller group that recurs. Everyone, you get like different missions. Like sometimes there'll be an Arctic mission. Sometimes there's desert. Sometimes there's jungle. Sometimes there's, dogfights in the sky. But it does come down a lot of times to a core group of characters. Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Stalker, Scarlet. It's nice. It's really nice. It always comes back to like a core group. Here's something completely different. And now for something completely different. According to Variety, Starz is developing a TV series based on this comic book. It's a horror crime book. It's called Bone Parish, and it was made with executive producer Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. You sold? It's an adaptation of a comic that came out in 2018 from Boom by Cullen Bunn and artist Jonas Scharf. Jonas has been drawing for Marvel lately, especially on, I believe, Ultimate Endgame. So his star has risen in the years since this came out. According to an official plot synopsis, the crime series is set in New Orleans, love that city, as the Winters family builds an empire around a powerful new drug crafted from the ashes of the dead that grants users vivid, haunting visions of the past. But as demand surges, rival factions, deadly secrets, and supernatural forces close in, pulling them deeper into a violent and inescapable nightmare of crime, horror, and family legacy. And maybe some jambalaya. Jambalaya, crawfish pie. I hope I don't die. So, I like crime stories, I like horror, and I like New Orleans. Somehow I didn't know about this comic, but I'm going to look into it. This one's a bummer, folks. But according to The Verge, Microsoft is planning a bunch of layoffs this week, primarily focused on their Xbox divisions. Might impact the Blade video game that had been announced. So one of the studios rumored to be closed down would be the France-based Arcane, who previously made the Dishonored games. Those were good. I played those. They're now working on Blade for Marvel with Bethesda Game Studios. Poor Blade. They previously released a trailer at the 2023 Game Awards. It's been in development since basically early 2024. So almost 2 years. Over 2 years now. 2024, 2025. Now we're into 2026. The game is said to be a third-person narrative adventure set in Paris, of all places, with Blade, of course, hunting vampires. The game was delayed to 2027 fairly recently. That's normal enough. Microsoft is said to be potentially weighing whether they should close Arcane or spin it off on its own, sort of let them just sort of be their own people. But a lot of Xbox game studios are expected to be laid off this coming week. Looking to make cuts. Guess what? You can't just have AI make a good video game, Microsoft. So good luck with all of that. One of the funniest jokes I ever saw on Simpsons, and I forget when it was, whether it was an early season or way later, but Lisa Simpson was getting laughed at by a class, and then it's revealed that it's a class learning French, so the teacher goes, en français, and they change from going ha 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 to ho ho ho. I like that. Isn't that a bummer? Come on, man. Blade should be a slam dunk. We've got at least 2, maybe arguably 2.5 good movies out of Blade. We should know how to make a good Blade comic, movie, video game. It shouldn't be this hard. It should not be this hard. Oh, well. What's this? Elder Scrolls Studios got absolutely decimated. No kidding. Darn. I liked a lot of Del Toro's. That did have one scene that has one of the first digital people. It has a digital blade doing a kung fu fight. Looks terrible, but the rest of it was very cool. Really? Well, thank you. I had fun doing that. Didn't seem like it was really connecting, so I'm moving past that. What else we got? Some other Marvel news. On July 1st, the manga publisher Shueisha confirmed the end of their longtime collaboration with Marvel. We had this as news a couple months ago, but Shueisha made it official 5 days ago. So, no public statement on why they're ending it, but it could be intuited. Basically, even though they've been working together for a long time, they've never really had a big hit manga based on Marvel stuff. The closest they've had is Deadpool Samurai, does well, but a single book doesn't quite justify this collaboration, I guess. The partnership began all the way back in 2019. It's going to end completely effective September 30th. There's about 14 series that they've released on Shonen Jump Plus. That's their online manga site. And then a bunch of them that did okay got collected into Tonkabon. We've got, the Deadpool Samurai book, Spider-Man Octopus Girl. That's where Dr. Octopus wakes up in the body of like a 13-year-old nerd girl, and Spider-Man Kazuna. Anyway, they're all going to go out of print. They're not going to be kept in print after this. Digital versions are going to be removed from sale in late September. Print is just while supplies last. Once it's sold out, it's sold out. Was that it? That was it. Let's switch to something more fun. This is a real picture, by the way. This is not me being silly or using weird fan art. This is just a funny news story. So Marvel Rivals has definitely been accused of being a gooner game because of the skimpy outfits they give the female heroes. But to be fair, they objectify the men at least as much. They really do. 10 new swimsuits were released for these characters. Emma Frost, Doctor Strange, I think he's in a Hawaiian shirt, Cloak and Dagger, they're a duo, they're paired, Spider-Man, Mr. Fantastic, Lady Loki, Daredevil, Black Widow, this one that you see here, Captain America, and White Fox. Yes, Cap is definitely packing there. And on top of that, I should note, the jiggle physics that they have on this, it's not just for the boobs. No, it applies to the male buttocks and their package, I'll call it. Here's a nice example of Mr. Fantastic with those jiggle physics, everybody. You turn him. You see that wobble? This game's hilarious. Look at that. That is just so silly. Yes, that is definitely Rob Liefeld's version of Captain America body-wise. That's America's summer sausage. That's America's America's bulge. That's America's dong. Everybody's going the same place. That's America's hot dog. I just thought it was funny, folks. I'm not making fun of it. Go for it. Whatever. I think it's funny, though. Look at that wiggle. Boing, boing, boing. I mean, he is Mr. Fantastic. He's made out of, he could stretch and stuff. I guess he would be a little wiggly, but all of the characters do that. All right, I'm going to switch to manga news. I think people should be aware of this. Get ready. So, one of Osamu Tezuka's manga stories that has never been reprinted in a collection is finally getting a print release. Tezuka, if you don't know, he is the godfather of manga, created so many genres, created anime, created just so many things in the world of manga. Just amazing. So the book we're talking about is Nagai Ana, which is a very serious manga that talks about issues of discrimination against ethnic Koreans in Japan. Korea is super close, the peninsula, to Japan. So there's always been some Koreans that have moved to Japan. But Japan has been, how do I even say it? Like, Japan is a monoculture. And it's a sad fact that, the further you get away from the city, the more old-fashioned they are with their views to outsiders. Anyway, this book was a 50-page story originally published in the weekly magazine, ironically called Sunday Mainichi. Mainichi means every day, but it was a weekly. Back in 1970. It's never been reprinted. 1970. So, for somebody this important, in comics. It's kind of amazing that there's a manga that is, over 50 years old that's never been reprinted. Well, there's a young editor at Hosei University Press, and he read this manga pretty recently, 2023, while studying prejudice against Koreans. And so he reached out and got permission from Tezuka's estate to reprint it. And Hosei University Press, a university press, is going to, has actually reprinted it. It can be purchased in Japan in bookstores now. I would love to read it. I've never read it. I would be very interested. Very interested. He was a visionary. I mean, sometimes he saw that other things were getting popular. He didn't necessarily do the first seinen or gekiga, adult manga, but he saw that there was like an interest in it, and he quickly changed a lot of his ideas to fit that mold, and he started making much more adult concepts like Dororo and Phoenix and Buddha, and as well as some horror stuff. It was really, really cool that he could do so many different genres. Phoenix is arguably his best book. So anyway, just wanted to put that on people's radar, especially if you plan on going to Japan. You may want to look for Nagai Ana, which means the long. Nagai is long. Ana. Shoot, I don't know if that means like road or journey or something like that. I can't remember right now. Darn it. Never mind. I won't try to translate. But that's what it says here. Nagai Ana. This isn't quite manga, but it's close enough that I'll talk about it. There are 2 official comic book adaptations of K-pop Demon Hunters, and they both use screen caps from the Netflix film. So we've got one from Random House up here that just came out, K-pop Demon Hunters, the movie and comics. And then we've got this 2-issue set that comes out together from Inklore, called K-pop Demon Hunters, the official screen comic boxed set. Hey, little sister. Hope you and Bunker and Kismet and Kairos are doing good. The box set, that's this one, 704 pages. Good Lord, 704 pages for $60. But that's a good value if this is your thing. Meanwhile, this one's way more condensed, just over 200 pages for $14.99. What else have we got about it? The box set, the bigger one, it isn't just the adaptation. It's got lyrics to the songs, fold-out posters for Hunter X and the Saja Boys. I hope I'm saying that right. I still haven't seen this one. Holographic foil slipcase, obviously. 2 paperback volumes with French flaps. That's a nice design element. 2 unique foil stamped book covers and a unified spine design showing Rumi's 2 sides. The story follows 3 K-pop stars who use their voices to battle actual demons. But here's what it looks like, folks. The one on the left here is from the more condensed version by Random House. And the one on the right is the Inklore 2-box set, but has obviously some of the same images just laid out a little differently. This one definitely is a little more spread out, obviously, to get to 700 pages. I saw a few layouts that were fairly visually interesting, couple nice angles and stuff. At the same time, I don't know. This isn't, to me, the most satisfying way to read a story, to just get the screen caps. But maybe for younger audiences, it's more satisfying because they like that familiarity, and maybe that eases them into how to read comics or manga. They might not have the experience yet. So I don't know. I'm not against it, really. I think it will probably bring a certain number of people into comics. It wouldn't be satisfying for me, but I think it would be interesting for younger readers. Yeah, I fully expect it to sell, no question. Yeah, sometimes I'll go to Kinokuniya. It's a chain of Japanese bookstores. We've got one up in Seattle. I like it quite a bit. It's pricey, but they import stuff regularly, including all like Weekly Shonen Jump. If I was obsessed, I could pick up the Japanese edition weekly, which is kind of fun. But they do have a bunch of those anime books that are just, screen caps. They've done it for Ghibli, but also regular series. It's not for me. It's not my favorite way of reading. Oh, here's one about a popular manga turning into an anime. So Crunchyroll announced this week that they acquired the international streaming rights for the pretty eagerly anticipated upcoming anime adaptation of the manga Kagurabachi. It's based on the probably most popular, second most popular Weekly Shonen Jump story right now. Maybe One Piece is still ahead of it. But yeah, it's a manga that's coming out by Takeru Hokazono. Yeah, I don't know. I've never read it yet. Although I do actually happen to have picked up the Weekly Shonen Jump that the first chapter appeared in. So maybe that's worth something. I don't know. How are 33 already here again? I don't know 33. What's that mean? Anyway, so yeah, it's getting an anime by the anime studio Sippic. I'm guessing at that pronunciation. Going to come out this coming April. The show is now slated to stream at that time on Crunchyroll in all territories except Japan, mainland China, North Korea, and South Korea. If you haven't read it, Kagurabachi, it's a somewhat dark action. It's still like shonen, but it's somewhat dark. Follows swordsman Chihiro Rokuhira as he seeks vengeance against a group of sorcerers while wielding a powerful magical katana, something his father made, his late father. This week, Sippic released a teaser trailer for a character in the story, this guy, Togo Shiba, an ally to Chihiro, a friend to his late father, and he's going to be voiced by a popular voice actor named Katsuyuki Konishi. Has anybody read it? I know it's already coming out in tankobon form here in the States. I think so. Yeah, that Marvel Rivals Captain America is very close to his proportions for Cap. Thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you very, very much. That's very kind of you. All right, I'll keep going. Hey, Archie stuff. A little bit of Archie stuff. It's nice. It's good. Another shonen. Okay. So, Oni shared this week these images and a few more. First look at their new character designs, how they're interpreting Archie for their upcoming partnership. They're going to be publishing Archie books. It's got artwork by Kano, that's these two that are in color that I showed, and Fabio Moon, these black and white ones. They're designing Archie and his friends for the modern day. The new designs will first be seen in comics in Archie #1 in September and Sabrina the Teenage Witch in October. We also got a tease on the plot for the November third book they're doing, Archie in Hell. That's by Patrick Horvath, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and Tyler Crook, Harrow County, two fantastic talents. The only way to save Archie is to curse him in a story that stretches from 1690 to present day. I thought one interesting element of these updates was what they've done with Jughead's hat. It's a corduroy beanie. That's because his original sort of crown It's a really old style of hat where, like, you know, the top stitching had like ripped out, and nobody wears whatever it was called anymore. So, yeah. Well, Jughead is timeless. Jughead doesn't care about fitting in or anything. I kind of like that. I also kind of like this take on Veronica. I never really watched that Riverdale show, but to me, it really looks like the version that was shown on that show. Oh, and by the way, if you look really closely, Jughead is wearing a no AI pin, which is pretty cool. Jughead's Bender from the Breakfast Club? Maybe, but not really sexual in any way. I'm looking forward to it, but specifically I'm looking forward to Archie in Hell. That's the one I want to read. I've got a good friend that I go to see a lot of movies with, and he liked Riverdale. He was like, yeah, it kind of got weird and trashy, but he watched it all. No, it wasn't a Paper Crown. Hold on. I'm going to look it up what it was called. It was called a whoopee cap. It was sort of you'd take an old fedora and you'd cut it into that. Like when it got like worn out and your dad wouldn't wear it anymore, it kind of got popular, I think, in post-Depression America. Keep in mind, Archie's about to turn 85. It's his 85th anniversary this year. He came out in, if I'm doing the math right, 1941 in Pep Comics. I think I got the math right there. So that would be the era where people were like, yeah, getting their dad's old beaten up fedoras and they'd cut it into what they called a whoopee cap. Nobody wears that anymore, though. So they've turned it into like, you know, a knitted corduroy hat. I'm a big fan of Derf Backderf. You can see here some of his credits. My Friend Dahmer, which is a biography. He went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer. Pretty interesting. Trashed, which is semi-autobiographical from the time when he worked as a garbage man, and it talks about how different parts of the world dispose of and recycle their trash. It's surprisingly interesting, especially the sort of boots on the ground viewpoint of what garbage men have to deal with. Most recent book was Kent State. That's where he studied, but obviously Kent State went through pretty horrible massacre. So he's done a lot of interesting stuff with history, but now he's doing one that's very much related to comics and cartooning, The Dissidents. So Derf Backderf, that's not his real name if you don't know, but anyway, Derf Backderf's newest book, The Dissidents, chronicles this true story of political cartoonists and journalists enduring the poisonous gaze of authoritarianism. Artists at the Radical magazine, it's up to interpretation how radical you think it is, but it was called The Masses. It's a real thing. They faced blacklisting and prison for opposing President Woodrow Wilson as he marched the nation into World War I. Artists such as Art Young, Cornelia Barnes, and Bob Miner championed the era's progressive causes, from women's voting rights to the fight against destructive labor practices. It seems so innocent now, but not back then. When the U.S. entered World War I, Wilson did not want people disagreeing with him. Not a good person, just to be clear. He enacted the Espionage Act to specifically allow the government to crack down on what he considered dissidents. And it let them arrest cartoonists. Cartoonists! How are you not allowed to do cartoons and comedy and satire? The Dissidents will be published by Abrams Books, the same people that did the John Byrne X-Men Elsewhere book. Comes out September 15th, 344 pages, hardcover, $29.99. I can't wait to read it. Should be really interesting. These cartoonists, like, yeah, we're threatened with like losing their work, going to jail for just, you know, poking fun at what was going on at the time. I don't think I know the Tilly Walden news. Sorry. Woodrow did The Secret Police, exactly what we criticized communism for later. Yeah. Cartoonists and comedians are always the first to be suppressed. Tyrants hate being mocked. Yep, thin skins. Wilson was a regressive racist, basically a competent version of the current POTUS. He was not good. Although, I'll be honest, it's kind of amazing our country got to where it is. When you really look at each president, there's some really horrible people there. Even the ones where I'm like, yeah, they probably did more good than harm. They all have something horrible about them. They all do. It's not, but you're opening your entire life up for public scrutiny. Some of them, though, exceptionally bad. Some of them exceptionally bad. I think it looks like an interesting book that's relevant today. Yeah, I heard about that. Just for like moving some zines, he got arrested. Crazy. Oh, I love this book, so I wanted to plug this one. I'm just plugging stuff I like. Dark Horse Books announced that they're going to publish an omnibus for Where the Monsters Lie, which so far has been 2 miniseries that they published. It's going to collect that as volumes 1 and 2. Plus, there was a final wrap-up chapter. Dark Horse didn't want to do that, so writer Kyle Starks and artist Pyotr Kowalski, they successfully crowdfunded the final arc. I supported that, but even if you didn't, you'll be able to get the entire story all collected now in an omnibus. It's horror, but funny horror, like really funny, really, really funny. There's archetypes of all types of killers, from Jason Voorhees to Freddy Krueger, Jigsaw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All these different types of killers are all represented as archetypes, and they live in a gated community for their off time. They're protected by like a couple people that like are just keeping them safe and off the grid. Anyway, the paperback omnibus is going to be 280 pages, available January 19th. So it's a little ways off, but $29.99, you get the entire story. I think Kyle Starks is hilarious. It's really, really good. So I wanted to put that on people's radar. Where Monsters Lie. Super funny. Super funny. Cool. Glad you've read it. Yeah. Yep. It's really, really good. It is odd, but it works. It works really well. Some of them are kind of fuck-ups. I feel bad for a lot of the people that live in mainland Europe right now. But on July 1st, the European Union introduced a €3 tariff on any goods entering the European Union that are worth less than €150. If it's less than €150, it gets a €3 tariff put on top of it. So since the UK left the EU back in January of 2020, Brexit, they're not part of the EU anymore. And that means that this week, comics like the Kids Weekly, The Phoenix, or obviously more popular stuff from 2000 AD, like 2000 AD and Judge Dredd magazine, stuff like that, they announced that they had to cancel their subscriptions to readers in Europe because it would add a €3 increase on top of whatever the book costs. That's basically almost doubling what a book costs. It doesn't make sense. Like it's prohibitively expensive. The tariffs are intended, there's good reason behind this tariff. It's intended to balance out the mega cheap Chinese retailers like Shein and Temu and AliExpress versus locally produced, food and goods. €3, not too much, but it helps balance out the competition. I don't think that's the most unfair idea to come up with. I really don't. But the tariff applied to one good, it's applied to one good at a time. So there are some possibilities for the future. For instance, a weekly comic like 2000 AD could potentially invent a way to get all the weekly books like once a month instead. And that would count as one good. You get it? So like maybe if you're only paying €3 once a month, it would be worth it to some subscribers, or quarterly, if not monthly. It's just an idea. There's also a chance that lobbyists could get comic books a carve out, potentially. I don't know. But nothing in the works right now. So say you live in Poland, but you enjoy getting some of these British comic books. England makes a lot of fantastic comics. It would cost €3 more per issue right now. Doesn't really make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's possible that like but it would be like this. It would be like if you got four different issues of 2000 AD, that should count as one good. You're allowed like multiple copies of the same good, and you just pay the one tariff. But if you got 2000 AD and Judge Dredd magazine, then you'd be paying the €3 tariff on each of those. But they'd probably allow you multiple copies or multiple issues of the same thing for what it means. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. If they can't figure something out, then online piracy is going to definitely spike, and then they're losing even more business. But they have to find a way to get this to their readers. And I mean, Europe has a long history of sharing their comics with each other. Italian fumetti, French bande dessinée, English weeklies. We'll see what happens. 2 more pieces of news I want to go over. Frank Miller was interviewed this week by The Telegraph, promoting his upcoming book, Push the Wall, his autobiography. He said some good stuff and some weird stuff. And I'll let you guys decide on which is which. I'm not including all of his quotes. For that, you can go to The Telegraph. It's behind a paywall, but I'm going to give you a little taste of it. Regarding Trump, he said, quote, "He's grotesque," and added, "Kirby several times recreated Adolf Hitler as a comic book character. One of them was named Hate Monger, and that one certainly applies to Trump." Okay, well, I guess I see where Frank Miller stands these days. I wasn't 100% clear, but fair. Here's an interesting one. As far as misogyny goes, I laugh about it because all you have to do is read my work. The accusations might be because I drew the women as attractive, but in Daredevil, for instance, who's the most powerful character you remember? It's Elektra. I'd push back on that a little, considering Bullseye kills her and Daredevil is the star, but she is powerful. When it comes to Sin City, yes, I draw the women to be as sexy as possible, but they have their own neighborhood that they police by themselves. They're a pack of Amazons. Maybe. He's got a lot of sex worker female characters. A lot. This is good. He said that Holy Terror, which is definitely Islamophobic, that it was written, quote, "in a bloodthirsty rage, that it was a howl of pain and rage and an inarticulate one." So he doesn't really stand behind that one so much anymore. But listen to this. Regarding Neil Gaiman, he said it would please the media if he spent half the interview saying he's not just a terrible writer, he's a bad person. When he's a lovely person, he's a terrific writer. I would not disagree with a terrific writer, but from what we know right now, I'm not so sure that you could call him a lovely person. Yikes. I do agree with you, Mike Manhattan. Martha Washington is a very good female character. Very, very good. He also said AI is a false god and it's making for some bad writing. All right. Now I'm going back and forth on some of this stuff. Anyway, if you're interested, you can pre-order still. I just checked. You can pre-order a signed edition of this book. on Barnes and Noble. There's the specific link. If you type that in, it's $35, but if you like Frank Miller at all, you can get a signed edition. That's not too bad. That's kind of cool. If you, I'm going to read it. I went ahead and ordered it. I loved Frank Miller throughout the 80s and into the 90s. I loved him. Some of his modern stuff I'm not as behind, but from Ronin to Daredevil, Dark Knight Returns to Martha Washington, Sin City, 300, so many interesting good books. Very good. And I admire that he's willing to do different things right now with his art. I'm hit and miss on whether I like it or don't like it. But at least he's trying new things, which most artists don't bother with. I admire that on an artistic level. And I think he's come around from where he sort of was just after 9/11, when I think he was, from what he's told us in some interviews, I think he was drinking quite a bit and maybe wasn't the same version of himself as before or right now. I don't know, though. I don't know. I mean, Batman Year One and Daredevil Born Again are probably still my favorite things that he's made, but a lot of the early Sin City I also liked. And again, that was him trying new things artistically. Yeah. Right. He was a different person for a little while there. But I think he's come back to closer to who he was originally. Last one for news, and then I'll talk about some comics that came out. There weren't a whole lot to talk about, but I'm going to talk about Jhonen Vasquez, who I kind of love. Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Anyway, Boom recently announced that they would be both reprinting the Oni comics of Invader Zim, which Jhonen Vasquez co-created as a cartoon. And those comics were something that Jhonen worked on. Then they're going to follow that up with news stories. But on Saturday, Vasquez posted to Instagram saying that he is not involved in the new version. Writer Jim Zub is the writer of the news stories, and he responded to this by posting to his blog. He said in part, "I was told the Invader Zim team would be approving our material, but found out after the fact that it wasn't Jhonen, Eric Trueheart, or anyone originally involved in the show's production. Approvals have gone through a Paramount licensing team, who I'm sure mean well, but also don't have any personal stake in Zim's creative vision or future. Boom's editorial team has assured me they've reached out to Jhonen and believe this can all get sorted out. I hope that's true. But if not, I'll need to evaluate what to do next. Whatever happens from here, I deeply appreciate your support and understanding." So I don't hold Jim responsible for anything. He was going off of what he was told. He previously did an adaptation of a popular cartoon with Samurai Jack, and that had direct involvement of the creators like Gendy Tartakovsky, as well as some of the other people that worked on the show. One of the character designers illustrated an issue. So, yeah, we'll see if Boom can get Jhonen involved on, or Eric Trueheart or any of the other people that were really directly involved, because it's weird, sometimes something is owned by a company, but also very clearly came from the mind of certain creatives, right? And if you don't have them involved, it's sort of what's the point? Even if it's just on an approval level. So you think that Paramount allowed this to be licensed because they wanted to see if it's worth doing as a cartoon again? Maybe. So I don't know. I have to admit, never saw the cartoon. I read Jonen's earliest indie comics. Don't know anything about Invader Zim. Hope it all works out for the best. So let's switch things up by doing some comic book reviews, some discussion on some of the latest comics that came out. There weren't many in my pile, so I won't have a ton to say here, but I think I have a few to talk about, like that were really good comics this week. Royals and Shoalin Cowboy, both super impressive, just to start with. So give me a moment to set up my second camera, and then we'll let's see, get there. We're going to
review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Okay. So I have talked up Royals since it came out. I have just come to realize that I really like how Derek Kirkham writes. I think he's good at world building, just often very important. And he's good at writing dialogue and characters where it's very clear that, you know, each character is who they are. And Royals is a sort of crime heist type comic with the gimme to it that there's these twin brothers who are psychic with only each other. They can read each other's thoughts. Castor, kind of the dumber guy, and Paul, the more sensitive guy. And I will say that one of the small complaints that I had originally was more just that I thought that Castor was kind of annoying, and I understood why his brother Paul kind of wanted to maybe leave him behind and go on his own path. This is Paul. I kind of got it, you know? But this issue 4, we're only at, turns it around in a big way. And I really like Castor now. He is, it showed him like his heart is in the right place. Just to be clear, last issue ended in a way I couldn't figure out what they were going to do next. Both heroes got shot in the head by a criminal gangster. What? And Paul is trying to rescue a girl that this gangster has as a prisoner, and he found her locked up in the bottom of a church. It didn't make any sense. This gives a huge twist that makes it make sense and has escalated the stakes in a huge way. Thank you for the super chat. I'm recommending Royals to every person I can. It's the best book Image has going right now, and I really hope this can go past 6 issues. I agree. This is must read for me. This is the best. When I read this issue, I was blown away. I had such a good time. It gives you twists and intrigue. There's some good action in here with like a really good car chase. And like, there's so many panels to some of these pages by Jacob Perez, but they read really clearly. You know, he's got this cartooning style that reads really, really well. Like, look at how many panels that is. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Very manga-esque. This is a guy who's done cartoons in the past, but not comics. But this reads very clearly. I think that a lot of people, though, that have studied cartooning can apply a lot of those storyboard techniques to good panel-to-panel storytelling. But that doesn't always mean good page-to-page storytelling or how to do things consistently. It's really good, folks. Let's just say that the guy who I thought was the villain for the first 3 issues, he's more like a henchman. And this new villain that we get revealed, so much more interesting and so much more insidious. And it's like he thinks he's doing good in the world, and he's just the most evil person. It's so cool. Oh man, this thing is so good. There's a few books right now that are at the very top of my pile, and a couple of them are Image comics. Escape by Rick Remender and Daniel Acuna is something really special, and Royals Here by Derek Kirkham and Jacob Perez. Those are my two absolute favorite Image books right now. I also happen to like Feral and Battle Beast quite a bit. I like Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman. And I like certain manga like Billy Bat and Dandadan. But those are all my favorites. Those are right now all my favorites. This thing is so good. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. If I talk about it too much, I'm going to spoil some of those twists and turns or character motivations. But I'll just say it moves at a really good pace. It's got some good humor to it with the character work. Just so good. So good. I read Starhenge. I admired that Liam Sharp was pushing himself in a new way artistically. The story didn't connect with me in a big way, but I did admire what he was doing artistically. Yeah, there's some European or what I would call lean clair for a line art style, kind of like what guys like Hergé, Mobius do with a fairly uniform line, but I would say storytelling wise, very manga-esque. And yet it's totally an American comic. It just is. A good blend of story, action, humor, and crazy twists that I never would have seen coming, and just sort of open up this world that it's building and what it means. I'm trying to think of like how much to give away versus like what would like spoil something, but I'll say that it takes the idea that like, okay, we accept that Paul and Castor have that psychic connection, but what are the implications in this world to that existing? It's more than just these two people having abilities. But the guy that's revealed as the villain, it's almost heartbreaking. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, everybody has their own agenda. That's the truth. I am a huge fan of Geof Darrow. He's just, first of all, outside of the comics that he makes, just one of the nicest guys you've ever met in the world. Like, could not be kinder. Could not be more empathetic. His art style, he is still performing at this ultra high tier in terms of storytelling and detail. You'd think that potentially, having worked in comics for a good amount of time, that something would have changed, but he's just incredible. Anyway, the latest book, I'll just simplify this. It's called Staying A.I.live. But what's important about it is just that the titular Shoalin Cowboy, soft-spoken, but like, best martial artist there possibly could be, kind of ends up going on a quest when he finds a message in a bottle by a skeleton. Just this dumb guy, like, kind of died in the desert, and he's going to go find the guy's mother and tell her what happened. And that brings him into the city. And, oh, my God, it's just such a black satire of what the world is right now. Every sign is laugh out loud hilarious. Just guns and liquor being sold everywhere, and the names he comes up with for these businesses are hilarious. Let's see. There's the Meeting Place, and it sells meat, so MEAT, the Meeting Place. What else did we have that was really funny? I want to see some of these other businesses that were in here. Ballmart, free pussy. I don't know what that even means, actually. The Horny Toad. Top Gun, ammo and guns. Cats in hats. Oh, yeah, he needs to get a new hat because his old one gets ruined. but a dog was trying to get revenge on the store, so he poops in front of it. Unfortunately, the Shoalin Cowboy steps on the poop. But with his incredible kung fu skills, he's able to kick the poop off directly at a pair of racists laughing at him. It's very silly. It's very silly, but it's a good story at the heart of it. You know, he's just a guy on a simple quest to find this woman, let her know what happened to her son. Oh, the detail in it is incredible. I've probably laughed the hardest at this that I've laughed at any Shoalin Cowboy book, and that definitely means something. Oh, it's so good. That page spends a lot of time on him opening a water bottle. Geof Darrow has me completely in the palm of his hand for pacing out his story. Not every artist can do that. Some artists, you know, it's clear, but it's like a thing happens, a thing happens, a thing happens. But this guy, this artist, he knows when to, you know, use a big double page splash like this of just the desert and slow it all down with just a little bit more text than we were getting before. Versus, like, you know, you'd think you might read this really fast because there's no dialogue. Sorry that it's not really focusing right now. That's frustrating. And I don't know. It's just such good storytelling for the gesture and emotion that the character has. And it's cool. Like, you know, he can't open this bottle, so he just like does a karate chop through it. Oh. You know, I've got a few cool Geof Darrow things. Let me show you one thing just because we're talking about it this week. Hold on. Back here, I've got a little bit of original art. I'm just really proud of this. That's an original sketch by Geof of his titular character. It's really interesting to look at and just see how precise his lines are, how confident he is, and how uniform the line art is. You know, I think a lot of artists for these wrinkles would switch to a much thinner line, a different type of pen, but he can keep it all uniform, and that actually does something for the artwork. It really is interesting. The patience that he has, I mean, not everybody's brain can work this way, that they can have the patience to do the amount of detail Darrow has, but it isn't meaningless detail. Like, look at how well this is framed. You know, like, look at how the negative space gives us very much the character and the background. But if you really look at it, like, the background does have a lot of noodling and detail on it, but all it's doing is giving texture where it's needed. It's not adding so much that I can't follow what's going on. Even when you get to the more complex city stuff, he still finds ways to guide the eye with shapes and composition. You know, like, there's a lot of detail on this page, actually. There's a lot of detail. And at the same time, it's very easy to see what the focus is. Somehow this crash is just, you know, framed very well. Or this low angle shot to make the hero look heroic. It's interesting. I don't know. You know, the next time I get an opportunity to talk to him, I'm going to ask if he has an average on that. Something tells me he doesn't think about it much. I think he can really get lost in drawing in a way that not every artist can. I think he can really get lost in the drawing. In a good way. I mean that as nothing but a compliment. I just admire Geof so much, but I think he has a really funny sense of humor. And when there's this much detail, it sort of becomes a second meta level of appreciation to read all the silly signs on the businesses, and it adds to that world. It adds to the satire of what you're looking at. And you look at the background characters and they're usually doing something. They're not just walking; they're doing something. A dog or could be pooping. Like, for instance, this tiny little bird sitting on his head, it's pooping right there, and that's silly, but it's doing something. It's not just there. I really do recommend it. I think it's funny. I think it's fascinating. It works as a good piece of artwork. It works as a funny story. Several levels it's operating on. Something special. I'll give a couple quick reviews to the rest of what I read real quick, but I wanted to shout out a friend. Where was it? I picked up the latest issue of Comics the Magazine. First of all, I do like this Mark Spears cover there. That's, I think, his character Midnight Man, I think. They use some interesting paper, that this publisher. Trying to see. Oh, yeah, there. Can you see that at the bottom? Do you see that, like, that lettering? That's the lettering on this page. So, like, I guess it's so thin that at the right angle, you can literally see, you can almost feel it, but more you can sort of see the letters come through at just the right angle. Like this, you can't see it at all. So yeah, they're using some interesting sort of thin paper here that I don't see usually. I was surprised to see that. But I got this because Dave from West Coast Dave Vengers wrote an article. There's some nice articles in here talking about The Walking Dead. That's cool. I think that's kind of short to, it's not quite an essay. But that's okay. This is about, Dave getting into comics and how much Todd McFarlane got him into comics specifically. And he shouts out a couple of different art pieces that he thinks are, underrepresented when it comes to Todd. Good for Dave. I'm happy for him that he got these 2 pages to talk about that. It's a fun little article. I said little, and that feels like I'm trying to diminish it. I'm not. It's not a little article. I mean, you got 2 pages. Excuse me. But I do think that these articles are kind of short, right? Like, this is a 3-page interview with Alex Ross, except when you add up like how big each image is, it's a pretty brief interview. It's interesting. It's good. I'm not complaining. It's just that this stuff is brief. Here's a quick article on a comic John Cusack wrote. Interesting to me. Several black and white pages promoting that book. So I don't know if that makes this like a paid ad in the middle. I have no idea. Or if it's just content. It's an interesting magazine. It's a good mix of stuff like promoting some upcoming books, an interview, couple, quick articles, couple quick comics. Yeah. Some ads. Very much like Wizard, like they've got top 10s for cover, interior artists, and writers. And then they've got little things here, like if you're new, you get a star. If you've stayed the same, you get a circle. If you've gone up or down, they've got like a little arrow. But they're not basing it just on their own opinion. They said that they've based this off of the power rankings are based on pre-order and subscription data from 60,000 consumers at over 500 comic shops. So that's a pretty representative idea, I suppose. Watching U.S. soccer in your backyard, Chris Baja Blast. Yeah, right. We're fighting Belgium right now, right? Are we up? I hope we're ahead. I still can't get super into watching the games, but I am kind of invested in following the scores. I mean, I know that the U.S. has gotten to this final 16, and I'd love to see us go further. Hard-Boiled is one of my favorite looking books by Geof Darrow. Yeah. I heard that too. I can't wait to read that in trade paperback form. Latest issue of Batman came out, and boy, I really think that Jorge Jimenez is doing some fantastic artwork in this. Yeah, it's a good story. Good stuff with new and old villains. Nice little subplots and stuff. Here's Batman having a big fight with this new assassin, Dioho. But what's potentially most interesting is there's this new subplot of they've gotten a new butler. Verity Pennyworth. Verity Pennyworth shows up with her credentials. She's going to be their new butler. She said that Alfred was her great uncle. Her great uncle. That's interesting. So you know what I think I'm going to do this week is I'm going to do a smaller, sort of like less edit intense episode. I'm going to talk to you guys about the history of Alfred because he's gone through some different iterations in the comics. I think it's more interesting than you might think. So I'm going to do a quick little episode about Alfred while I'm also simultaneously building a bigger episode about a manga creator that I hope people will be interested in. But anyway, I'm enjoying this. And at the same time, I do enjoy Absolute Batman more. And I was trying to think about that because I like the subplots and the character work in this. I like the art a lot. So why am I enjoying Absolute Batman more? And I guess it's just because even though it's recognizably Batman, Absolute Batman, it still surprises me a little bit more. I don't know. That's all I can come up with so far. That's all I can't be 100% sure. Oh no, are we not doing well? Let me take a quick look at what the score is. USMNT. Bye-bye USA. Fair play. Really? What's the current score? I just want to see. And then I'll be back to talk about comics. Oh. 1-4 in favor of Belgium. Yikes. Belgium is kicking our ass. Oh. Yikes. Yeah, maybe that's it. Like, maybe it does feel like even if Bruce Wayne probably won't get hurt, like any of the supporting cast, weird stuff could happen to them. You know, like they could get disfigured, they could get killed. It feels more like anything could go. Bunker graduated his puppy class tonight and passed his star puppy certification. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you're doing a good job training your boy. I can't wait to meet him someday. I mentioned before that I really enjoy this book, The Ordained, which is John Wick. If John Wick was, John Wick style action, but it's a former Navy SEAL who becomes a priest. He hears a crime boss give his confessions because he thinks he's dying, but then the crime boss doesn't die, so he sends hitmen out after this priest. But the priest is a total badass. He won't kill, but he messes them up really good. And there's a lot of great action in this. I like it. There's a lot of 2-page spread, it goes across 2 pages like this way, which at first was a little confusing, but fortunately the artist Trevor Hairsine did a couple little things, like he'd have a panel overlap here, and that's just enough to get me to understand that I'm not reading this page and then this page. It was just enough for me to go, okay, I read it all the way across. It was good. It was fun. At the same time, I thought that it was just going to be sort of a 3-issue series. It ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and so there's a little more to the story than I realized. It's cool. In some ways, I look at it, and it's like a proof of concept for a movie, right? But it does read pretty well as a comic book. The artwork by Trevor Hairsine's good, and the character's pretty interesting. I like it. And I got Fantastic Four, which, as usual, just sort of does a one-shot sci-fi mystery story. In this one, what's funny is the Fantastic Four have some enemies that are supernatural as compared to science-based. Johnny Storm and Sue Storm decide to use their powers together to intimidate them. They're not afraid of the Fantastic Four, right? They're like regular enemies. So they go, well, let's fake what we look like. Sue Storm makes Johnny's skull show up. She makes his face invisible, but then he still has his fire powers. So they pretend to be Ghost Rider for the issue to intimidate some of their enemies. It's a fun little story. That's what I read this week. I did realize that I forgot to pick up one of my favorite books, Escape, last week. So I've got it on back order at my comic book shop. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. Did anybody else read any comic books that they recommend this week? I'm always listening to what I might be missing. Just going to draw a little bit right now. Too bad. Too bad. Sentry is good. Oh, you got the reprint of JLA Avengers. Great book, though. Yeah, I know it's not new, but great book. Great book. And I'm glad that they're reprinting it for the people that haven't been able to read it before. Really good book. Oh, thank you so much, Mike. That's so nice of you. Mike is a fantastic, fantastic artist himself. So it's a nice compliment. I heard that Last Starfighter became a comic. Now, does that mean that it's new stories set in that movie universe, or is it an adaptation of sorts? News story. Okay. That's definitely a little obscure in some ways. I don't think a lot of people have seen Last Starfighter, but it's an entertaining one. Jim Mafood and I are going to do another trash movie bonanza recording this week. I think he's chosen a very interesting movie to talk about. So I'm excited about that. That means within a week or so, we should have you guys a new episode of Trash Movie Bonanza. What else? I know Jim also has a new sketchbook out in time for the summer convention season. So that's something you might want to go to his website, jimmafood.com, and check out. What else? Read the Jeff Johns Avengers book. All right. Oh, I love Brutal Dark. Such a good book. Such a good book. Yeah, awesome book. I picked up IDW's compact collection of The Rocketeer. Yeah, good value, I bet. Nice. What did I want to talk about here? You know what? I watched a little bit of TV. For me these days, that's not always a for sure thing that I have time for that. I watched the first 3 episodes over several days of X-Men 97 Season 2. Still very good. That was a nice little surprise to me, like how much I liked Season 1, because I didn't watch all of that cartoon. I think I watched basically Season 1 of the original X-Men cartoon and then kind of dropped off. And I didn't know if I'd be able to follow it, but, no, X-Men 97 is very easy to follow. And it really focuses on what makes the characters cool and heroic, which I think is something that like the current era is missing a little. Like they're focusing too much on trying to make a new statement. And it's like, well, how about we also remember that they're supposed to be heroes? Animation is really good on that show. For a TV show, I think the animation on X-Men's really, really good. I liked the storyline. It was taken a little bit from the comics, but it switches it up a little bit too. Episode 3 was really fun. I won't spoil anything for people here, but they roll in a Marvel Comics character that isn't really thought of as an X-Men character. But I like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, because back in the day, the X-Men show could really only be X-Men stuff. But now, of course, it's Disney. They can use whatever they want. And so that was kind of fun. Episode 2 gives us the cartoon versions of teams like X-Force and X-Factor. And I like that, it was like for one episode, though. It wasn't like, we're going to throw all these new mutants at you. It was like for one episode. And I like that. I recommend it, folks. If you haven't had time to check it out, it's a very good show. It's really fun. How late were people doing fireworks wherever you live? For me, I think it faded off around 4 a.m., which is pretty late, but not as bad as it's been some years. Yep. As somebody that's a massive fan of that Rick Remender Uncanny X-Force run, they definitely take some ideas from it. Some modern ideas. It was cool. I like it. I do. It's pretty fun. And it's in and out, it's not quite 30 minutes. It's a good length of time where I can sort of watch it and focus, and I haven't given up a huge portion of my day. That's nice. So I've been enjoying that. I look forward to the next episode. So just chill till the next episode. What else? It's kind of jumps all over. It deals with a couple different ideas. It deals a little bit with, the 4-issue Cable miniseries where Scott and Jean are in the future raising him. It's got a little bit of, I want to say they called it like the Drawing of 12 or something like that, an apocalypse story. They've got a little bit of Wolverine with his feral era when he was had the metal pulled out of him. It's got a little bit of the beginning of X-Force and the beginning of X-Factor. And it's got a little bit of the more modern Rick Remender Uncanny X-Force, and it jumbles it together. Inevitable? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe more as sort of like a one-shot or mini-series every once in a while. I'm not sure if it needs to be an ongoing book. What else came up this week? I have gotten into reading books again because I decided to pick up the first volume of Dungeon Crawler Carl at my comic book store. I was like, everybody's talking about this. He's a local guy. He used to be a commission artist that would draw people's pets and stuff like that. I was like, I want to know what the hype is about. And it's not like it's deep, but it's fun. It is fun. It moves at a brisk pace. Maybe arguably a little repetitive, but that's just by nature of you're playing, it's like playing a tabletop game. You go up against enemies. That's what you do. But I think it's fair, and I think that the character is interesting. I like it. I like him, and I like Donut. I like Carl, and I like Donut. I blasted through the first book, and I'm almost done with the second book, and I look forward to reading the next one. So it's nice to come back to reading books. I've been reading comics and news articles for so long, but I like reading books. And so anyway, just wanted to say that it's been a real pleasure reading that stuff lately. So yeah, that's something I've been doing that's been giving me a lot of pleasure. The other day, I was picking up some medicine at Target, and I was walking around the store while it had to get prepared. And I came across their clearance section, and they had a pretty big Lego one-piece set. It's like 900 bricks or something, and it was for less than half price. So I got myself a Lego set and built that, and that was also like really good therapy. I forgot, because I haven't been building them lately since my cats kind of attack them. But I was just like, well, for this price, whatever. And they have attacked it a little, but that's okay. Boy, Lego really is something that helps me chill out. I find it just so relaxing to build Lego. I guess you're not doing anything that productive in some ways. You're just following steps, but I find it very, very relaxing and very satisfying. The way they click together, the way you just sort of follow the directions. You don't have to like give a lot of mental capacity. You can instead like think about other things, like make plans for chores that you need to do, or I can think of editing choices and story topics for the show and my writing. I think about a lot of that. Yeah, Lego is like meditation for me. I would love to get one of the bigger sets, but I can't really justify spending that kind of money right now. But this one was so inexpensive versus like what you got. I was like, I'm going to get myself a little Lego set. And you know what? I honestly think it was really good for me. I really think it was good for me, because I won't, no, nothing as big as that. It was just a tiny little building for Arlong and his, sort of fishmen pirates. Yeah, I won't go too deep into it, but I will say I've been extremely depressed and stressed out lately. And I'm doing what I can to take care of it, so you don't need to worry, but I'll just say that I've been pretty miserable, and like, it's been tough. It's been really tough how stressed out I am. Not that that's anybody's issue. I'm just saying that it's tough. But there is some good stuff going on. Chrissy and I have finally, thanks to like help from the community as well as like family and friends, we've saved up enough so that we can begin those repairs on our basement. We had a project manager come to our house this week and scope it out. We've already basically like paid them a huge down payment. And anyway, it's just in the works. The repairs are in the works, and it might take 2 or 3 months to get it repaired, but it's nice to be going that way. Thank you for this. Wow. Been a while since I made it here, Chris. Glad you could make it, Powerhouse. Hope you had a great 4th of July. We didn't do anything, to be honest. It was kind of a tough day. Anyway, sorry. Could have been worse. It's definitely the 90s again with variant covers. Yeah, I get it. I do. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. What else? Thank you. I've gotten into the Blockies Champion class model kits, easier than Bondi kits, so smoothing out nubs is less of a chore, and they feel nearly like high-end action figures in hand. I saw some of those, Mike, when I went briefly to my local Washington Summer Convention, and I gave some thought to getting them, but I didn't 100% know what they were or how long they took, so I didn't get them. What else? There was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, I'll talk about comic tropes real quick. So, look, I have wanted to talk for ages about like the Jaws manga and Shark comics, right? It's just something I wanted to do because it entertains me. It feels kind of personal because I love Jaws, but I also grew up in a seaside fishing village and would see sharks, including the ones that the fishermen hung up. Like, if you watched my video, that's actual footage from Situate of like a shark being displayed. And it's just something I wanted to talk about. But I also will say, I had it in my head that a lot of people would be interested in it because the Jaws manga is so rare and it goes for so much. I thought that there was a built-in audience for it, right? Plus Jaws is popular. But folks, I don't think I've had an episode bomb as hard as my latest episode. For my 10th anniversary episode, I was going to talk about something I liked, and I'm glad I did. I had a blast making it. I'm proud of it, but it tanked. It absolutely I don't think it even has 10,000 views after like more than 2 days of being up. Terrible for me. Terrible. I don't care that much. Terrible though. And so it's either that I completely misjudged it and the audience has no interest in me talking about shark comics around the world, or there's something in YouTube that like YouTube thought maybe it would be not appropriate to share with people. I don't know. Or maybe it's the fact that I released it on a holiday and people weren't watching YouTube on the 4th of July. I really don't know. It's okay. I'm moving past it. I'm glad I made it. I had a lot of fun making it. I'm proud of it. But it is fascinating to just see like an episode just tank that bad. Just terrible. I think Shark Week is going on now. I think it's more than a week. But anyway. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think I'll necessarily keep using my animated intro because I do think it's a little old-fashioned now in YouTube to have an intro. I think people want you to get right to the material, but I wanted to hang on to it until I got to my anniversary and sort of make that slight remix that just quickly shows a couple funny shots from the past and just, you know, pay respect to what's gone before. Thanks to all my viewers. So yeah, it was fun to make that. I think now I'll just try to be a little more streamlined and get right to the topic. We'll see. Maybe every once in a while, if I can think of a good reason, I'd include it, but people don't really use intros anymore. And that's a pretty quick one too. It's less than 10 seconds, but I think people just want to get right to the content. So I've been thinking about that. I might like try to find ways to introduce more humor into my episodes again, because I think that's more authentically me. Maybe I need some of that to have it feel like something I would do instead of anybody else. We'll see. Some stuff I'm thinking of. Well, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that was a nice little surprise. Was that today or yesterday? But yeah, the official 2000 AD account boosted my episode because I talk about a British comic in it. Maybe YouTube wants people to make like shorts and short form content. That doesn't interest me at all for the most part. Every once in a while, I have an idea where I'm like, oh, you know what? That's just a quick idea. I do want to do it. I'll do it as a short, but not much. It's never going to interest me. I've considered it, but I barely drink anymore. I just don't. And I am really watching what I eat super closely. I've also actually started a daily GLP-1 drug because I do have diabetes. So yeah, I can't really eat snacks or crazy food like I used to. I just can't. My body, it would be bad for me. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, it might gain some traction somewhere like that. I have considered something like that, but I'm not 100% sure if it's something people would be interested in necessarily or not. And there's also, only so many of them to talk about. But it's an interesting idea. I've been like, if I talked about, Blade or Snowpiercer or History of Violence, Ghost World, would that interest people? I wonder. That's not a bad idea at all, to use shorts to plug your long-form content. However, what it does for me effectively is it adds a lot more time making an edit for something that I've already made. And I don't have much free time since I've still got a day job. So I think if I did this as a full-time career, just like YouTube was my job, my only job, I think I would do what you're suggesting, but I just don't think I realistically have the time to do that. These are interesting questions, and I like talking about the behind the scenes stuff of YouTube because there's not many people that I can talk to about that stuff. So I appreciate your suggestions. Some of them I have considered or even tried before, just to be clear. I mean, I've been doing this 10 years, so I've got a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't, but I also want to try new things. I never want to get too stagnant. My name's Staggy Stagnant, and I like being stagnant. I've done it. It's on this channel, buddy. If you want to see a Faust movie review, I've reviewed a lot of trashy movies with Trash Movie Bonanza on this channel with Jim Mafood, and Faust is one of them, and we had a lot to say about it, and I definitely recommend checking it out. So, yeah, I have done that. I'd love to go back on it. I've been on it once before. We had a great time. I drew, I want to say Roadblock. I think we had a G.I. Joe theme to it. And yeah, we talked a lot about YouTube as well as comics and stuff. And it was fantastic. I really admire Sean Crystal and Jim Mafood. And I was really lucky. Their pal, who's also part of Ink Pulp, Eric Canetti, who I'm a huge fan of. I really admire him. He jumped in, and I was like kind of starstruck. Yeah, Astro City would make a good video. I would definitely do that, and I want to do that. I would. I will. Oh yeah, I think you'll like it. I think we had a lot of fun with it. It wouldn't be as hard to review movies, but I'm also not set up to edit movies in terms of like easily being able to download the movie so that I can grab clips real fast. I'd have to come up with a slightly different workflow to everything. But that's not the end of the world. It could be worth it. I'll give it some strong thought. I appreciate the suggestions, folks. Didn't really think anyone would be interested, but maybe I'll do some of that as like some bonus content first on my Patreon and see if people like it. Just sort of do free-flowing reviews of comic book movies and see if anyone likes that. And if they do, maybe I'll roll it out to the main channel. Like I can test it basically on my patrons. Give them a little something extra. If they like it, share it with more people. If not, then no harm, no foul. To a degree, I do that too. I try to think a little bit about like what other people might like, but you never can fully guess. So I go, okay, every once in a while I should try to do, a Marvel or DC thing, as long as it still interests me. But you can never be 100% sure. I'm Attila the Hun, Pilgrim. So crazy. That movie is depressing because they filmed it somewhere where they tested a lot of nuclear bombs. So like tons of the film crew ended up getting deadly radiation poisoning and cancer for a really bad movie. The Conqueror just was not meant to be. I think if I did this drawing here again, instead of doing all of this different types of shading, I think one thing that would have been kind of fun would be to have used different types of zipatone screen tones. I think it could have been a lot of fun for me to have cut out some of that stuff. But that's what I'm having a blast doing, sort of concrete and wooden and glass texture and taking my time noodling around. Hopefully it all adds up to more than the sum of its parts, or whatever that phrase is. John Wayne as Genghis Khan. Such a terrible idea. Yes and no, Mike. It's very easy at first if you're going to use a lot of different types of it for like different types of shading effects. It can get a little tricky because you don't want it to stick to itself. So like if I was doing one screen tone for like, this background and cutting it out into like, window shapes or something, fine. And then maybe I pull away some for the highlighty parts, and that's all good, right? But then maybe I wanted to add a little bit of tone to this reflection. And that gets a little trickier because now I'm like trying to lay it down, but not have it like stick to the edges and stuff. So it gets a little tricky, and you can understand why people go digital now. You can definitely understand, but it's fun. It's legit fun to put down screen tone. It's just a little sticky. You've got like that X-Acto knife, and you're making these tiny little cuts. It's really fun. It's tricky to do well, but it's really fun. I mean, yeah, Matt has so many subscribers and can hire such great editors. Like his videos almost always do well. He can't lose. That could be interesting to talk at some point about, like more the Wildstorm era of Alan Moore. I think that would be an interesting area that I don't think I've explored myself a whole lot, but I like Alan Moore, so I would enjoy exploring it. That would be interesting at some point. Yeah, I've never read Supreme because I just sort of had been burned out on a lot of the Rob Liefeld books at that point in time when Alan Moore took over writing it. But then a lot of people were like, no, this is really good. And I was like, oh, missed out on that. I would legit love some Comic Tropes technique videos, maybe some guests to demonstrate some stuff. A very interesting idea. Well, like I say, the show that inspired me is a show that does that, and that's Monben by Naoki Urasawa for NHK TV. Just if look up Monben, Manben, on YouTube, if you haven't watched any of them already, you're going to learn so much. As long as you love comics, you're going to learn a lot. I read the first ones that they made in the 90s. That was a huge deal when Star Wars had been gone for, over a decade. God damn, Dark Empire was so cool to discover at the time. So cool. There's a few creators that I could easily talk about a lot more that probably would interest people. Like, Alan Moore, Jack Kirby, Wally Wood. These are people that people are always interested in hearing about. Haven't read the Star Wars manga, no. Seen it on the shelf, haven't read it. Oh, that's definitely something I would love to do. Talk about guys like Milton Caniff, Hal Foster, Raymond. I'm blanking on the name. But also EC Cigars Popeye has always been something I'd love to talk about. But when you talk about something that big and that expansive, it's like, how do you decide what you're going to do as an essay versus which images are you going to be able to actually access to back up your arguments? Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I was thinking of Alex Raymond for short. Thank you, Circuitron. Thank you. I haven't heard of that one. Sorry. There's so much Star Wars stuff that I quickly got overwhelmed. I started with when they had the Timothy Zahn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, and then the Dark Empire comic books. I was super into it, but I quickly got overwhelmed. No, Wally, I didn't get the new 100 Bullets. Liked 100 Bullets quite a bit, although I liked the earliest issues the most, when it was focused on individual stories of what a person would do with untraceable bullets, versus once it got into like the mythology and stuff. Good, but not my favorite. I like the earlier issues of 100 Bullets more. I looked at a couple, and the ones I looked at were really good. I read a story by Morgan Beam that was good. I read a story by, I forget because it's been a few months. I forget the other one that I read, but yeah. No, I didn't read a lot of New 52 stuff. I started on New 52. My friend Travel Foreman was drawing Swamp Thing, written by Jeff Lemire. And I liked it, but he didn't stay on that book too long. And yeah, so I haven't read a lot of New 52 stuff. I don't really remember it off the top of my head, no. Alex Raymond's art in detective stories is so underrated. Like for much, I admire his Flash Gordon artwork for the Legacy, though Rip Kirby is amazing. Didn't understand all of that, but I think I got the gist. Oh, very nice. Congrats. Congrats. He's a great artist. Great art holds up. You know what I mean? Great art holds up. So it's fun sometimes to look at like Terry and the Pirates, Rip Hunter. Not Rip Hunter. That's the DC character. I meant Rip Kirby. An episode of Star Wars Legacy. I need to hone in on something like smaller within there. But maybe. Travel was on Animal Man. I really miss catching his art, and I hope he's doing something right now. I have no idea what he's up to these days. He's so damn talented, especially if he can take his time and draw what he likes. God, he's just an incredible artist. But yeah, I haven't seen him work on a comic in quite a while. Oh, really? Toshin is good. Expensive, but good. Real good. Did I talk about everything I was going to talk about? I think so. I didn't have time to go out to any movies or anything like that. Not that specifically, but I definitely want to talk about Doug Mahnke. Big fan of Doug Mahnke, and was definitely thinking of discussing just how fully formed he emerged as an artist on The Mask. Yes, he evolved, but it is so recognizably Doug Mahnke right from the beginning. And I love those early Mask comics. They were really, really cool. Well, anyway, I think I've doodled enough right there. Was there anything else I had in mind? No, I think I'm going to do a few manga artist episodes, which I think the topics are super interesting, so I want to do them. I don't expect them to do super incredible because it's just not what everybody looks for, at least on my channel. But I love manga, and I want to talk about Go Nagai. I want to talk about Araki and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. At some point, I want to talk about Shigeru Mizuki. So those are a bunch of things that I want to talk about. Not specifically. I've talked a little bit here and there about him as part of a bigger episode. I've talked about his artist, Cole. But I would do a dedicated episode to Plastic Man at some point. I think that Plastic Man is kind of the first, at least the first successful, but the first comic to bridge the early newspaper funny type comics and the new superhero ideas. That was the first successful golden age blend of them. Manga Tropes. Slam Dunk remains one of my favorite manga. Not a huge basketball fan, really, but Slam Dunk is incredible. Art, pacing, character, so good. Yeah, that's true. Akira Toriyama would probably do pretty well if I talked about that. And Dragon Ball is not something I'm an expert on. But I could talk about something like Dr. Slump. That would be nice. Kyle Baker is, in my opinion, underrated. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if I was to talk about it, it's too big for me to try to break down the plots type stuff. That doesn't interest me a whole lot. But what does interest me is A, Hirohiko Araki's evolution as an artist, B, his influence from the fashion industry, and 3, his crazy ass poses. I've got a lot of respect for Leiji Matsumoto. When I was very young, I want to say Galaxy Express was on TV, but I mean, I'm talking maybe even before preschool, I was seeing some of that. Galaxy Express and what was the other one? Guy King. Those were on TV when I was just really little, and didn't make 100% sense to me, but I found it really interesting. That could be a fun way to do it, like talk about some of his short stories. You know what would be fun? This just popped into my head. I adore the shorter stories and novellas almost by, I'm blanking right now on his name, but the creator of Chainsaw Man, because I love Look Back and just all his short stories. Those are so good. That could be a lot of fun. I would have a lot of fun talking about that. Anyway, there's a lot of manga that I love. And I've always felt that I should do another video about Naoki Urasawa because that was one of my very first videos. And I don't even remember, but I'm sure it was like chaotic and all over the place. I think Mazinger Z was on when I was very little, yeah. And that's why I want to talk about somebody like Go Nagai, because he was the first to say, this isn't a big robot. This is a big mech that's being piloted by someone. He was the first one to do that. So stuff like Mazinger, Cutie Honey, Devilman, they're all pretty influential. I've never read Fire Punch, I will say. I've heard a lot of people love Frieren, but I haven't read that one either. I don't know. Look Back was turned into a film, not quite super long, but boy, is it gorgeous. No, Gundam is definitely a bit of a blind spot. I got into, in the early 2000s, I got really into building Gundam model kits. I've never watched or read any Gundam, so I don't understand the story or the lore at all. I don't know what I was building, but I built a lot of those. When I moved across the country, I donated all the sets that I had built to the local Goodwill. Hopefully, some kids could get it as a toy, like action figure. One of them was really big and literally transformed from a jet into a robot. So that was kind of cool. Check out Gundam The Origin. It's a retelling. Well, maybe I will. Gundam Wing. If I have time, I would see. I never get tired of seeing Akira. Love Akira. So I would definitely see that again. Yeah, I do know that much. You're definitely right about that. The Gundam has had definitely different interpretations over the years. I don't think it was ever expected to be as popular as it was. So I think that the original anime might have been pretty short, all things considered. I don't know. You guys are giving me all sorts of interesting things to talk about, but I can't go on forever. I'm having fun, though. Thank you. Let's see. There's a 3-episode of the condensed show of the original Gundam series, I think, on Netflix. I don't have Netflix anymore, so I wouldn't be able to see it if that's where it is. But I appreciate that, EJ. I do. I am curious what Gundam is, because beyond really enjoying building those model kits, and I've tried to not get back into that because there's so many that it would be a very expensive hobby. but I loved building those. And I've been, to Japan several times, and I love seeing the gigantic statues that sometimes move. Like if you go to Odaiba Island, Diver City, there's one, I think it's called Unicorn Gundam, and they're about to take it down this year. It's been up for many years, but they're about to take it down. But it's really cool. It has multiverses. Okay, yeah. Maybe for every mainstream topic, you could do a one for me as a good balance. So I sort of try, but yeah, I probably do more like 5 for me, 1 for you. No, I try to do. I'm obviously not the kind of creator that somebody like Comic Drake or Matt is, like, because those guys understand what people want, and I'm not that popular. That's okay. I get a little bit of money out of it, and I have a lot of fun talking about comics. It would be cool if it was like super successful, but I think 10 years is enough time to realize, I'm not going to be super successful. I do okay. But I don't think like tomorrow people are going to be like, Comic Tropes, this thing's amazing. Thank you. I feel it. I think that there is a fantastic community that I have access to and hopefully have helped build. I think that the comic book community online in general, very, very smart, very, very empathetic to others. So I love being part of it. But yeah, I've been feeling pretty down and pretty stressed out. And I think it's time for like adding another sort of newer challenge. And I've wanted to do it before, but I really think that I think I'd get a lot of pleasure out of making a comic and maybe talking about that journey, whether it does well or not. I think I'd have a lot of pleasure doing that. So that's something I'm definitely strongly considering, if I can figure out a way to manage my time better. That is the trickiest part for me. I'm just terrible, I think, at time management. That might be the difference between, more successful channels and mine is probably time management. But it's also just like, I feel like I have to earn a certain amount of money at a job. And so that kind of prevents me from doing too much on YouTube at any given time. I've got a ton of ideas, but the one that's like I've already written and I should just revise is a werewolf one shot. If I can find a really good artist, I know tons of really talented artists, both fans and pros, but I've got an idea in my head of how it should look. I think it would do well. So it's trying to think. Like, I think within the next week or two, I could probably start revising a draft. And if I get started revising the draft, I'm sure I could have that draft revised within, a week. And then it's really just finding the right artist, hiring them and saying, go nuts. And when it's ready, it's ready. That's the trick. Is, I've got YouTube and I've got a day job and I've got, sort of chores and family health issues that really impact everything. It's very tricky for me. It's very tricky. Yeah. It's very tricky. Anyway, this was great. This was really, really fun. Thank you so much, everybody, for the great questions and comments. What are you most excited about in comics that are coming up? Right now, for me, I got to admit, that Daniel Warren Johnson news has me pretty excited. Shane Cotta, I don't know. He's not let me down yet, so I'm pretty excited for that. Appreciate all the support and kind words tonight. That really makes me feel a lot better. But I need to make something healthy. I think I've got the makings for a salad. Been eating well. And then I'm going to get right to work on polishing the script I've already written for an Alfred Pennyworth episode, kind of an easy one, a little bit explainy, but hopefully talks about something more than just this is what happened to Alfred, but more how a shared character can evolve in different ways and in weird ways. That's my goal. And then I'm going to do some more in-depth stuff. Thank you. I've been enjoying doing the story time episodes. I don't expect them to do amazing, but I do think overall they're helping the channel just by getting stuff out weekly. Even if the view count isn't that high, I still think that they help overall. But we'll see. All right, everybody. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Keep reading comics. Thanks, everybody. Good night.